What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again with Locked On Wizards. Today, we're going to do some more scouting with the draft coming up. Today, we're going to scout Jarace Walker out of Houston and Dereck Lively the second out of Duke. We're going to look at could they fit in DC and what would it take to get them in the draft? Where would they fall? So we're going to talk about that and more next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's really good, Wizards fans? It's your boy Brandon Scott again with Locked On Wizards. Thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Now we're going to get into a forward and a center today that could drop in the later rounds because I do think that the Wizards need to trade back into the first round. And obviously, both of these guys. Now, Jarace Walker is a guy who has been floated to be picked anywhere from pick 5 to pick 12. So we're going to take a look at him. And Dereck Lively is a late round guy, but I think that, if we trade back in the first round, that he's a name to look at. And if he drops into the second. So let's get into it. We're going to start out with Jarace Walker. Now, Jarace Walker out of Houston is a power forward, but he can play small forward at 6'7", 250 pounds if you round it up. Looking at his stat line from this previous season at Houston, he averaged around 11.2 points a game, 6.8 rebounds, 1.8 assists, and from three, he shot 34.7. Now, obviously, we're going to start with three-point shooting because the two major needs we had for this team, looking at last season was three-point shooting and defense. Now, 3-point wise, league average is around 35%. So that's really the benchmark you want to aim for is average. And he's shooting 34.7. So, he can shoot from behind the arc, and that's a major need for us, especially out of the forward position. Excuse me. But, his rebounding, he's averaging around 7. So he can rebound at a high level. If you look at certain players like Kyle Kuzma, who's a forward who can rebound, I'm a big rebound guy. I love anybody who can rebound at a high level to me is a team-friendly player because rebounding, man, you're keeping the ball in your possession. It's very important. Rebound, especially offensive rebound, is golden, man. So I definitely like anybody who can rebound at a high level. And he can rebound. 6.8 rebounds, rounding up to 7. But look at some attributes that I like, and a couple that I don't like. One thing, he's tough. He's got that dog in him. Me and E from this previous season, we said that we need more guys on this team that got that dog mentality, that the tough mentality, diving for loose balls, tough, catching a few T's, talking stuff. We need toughness. We have a lot of finesse on this team. We need more toughness. He will bring toughness. He will bring a high level of toughness. His power, he's very powerful, and his body build, very powerful, very strong. He's a guy who's going to demand some respect in the paint at the forward position. So I think those are two big attributes that really intrigue me about Jarace Walker. Now, like I said, I said in the previous video talking about Cason Wallace and Nick Smith Jr. It's tough to really look at, outside the top 3, and even in the top 3 is not guaranteed. It's a lot of these draft prospects looking at Jarace Walker and even Cason Wallace, they can go anywhere from the top 5 to top 10 to even fall at top 15. It's varied. CBS, NBC, ESPN. The Bleacher Report. Everybody has a different mock draft. And, like I said, outside the top 3, now, obviously, Wembanyama is going number 1. It's not like last year when, they caught us off guard with Banchero. Wembanyama is going number 1. But number 2 is a little tricky because Scoot Henderson, would you draft him? It's tough to play 2 point guards in the same backcourt. If you look at Atlanta, with Murray and Young, they didn't have the most successful year. It's tough to have 2 ball dominant guards in the same backcourt. And that's why a lot more people are starting to put Brandon Miller from Alabama in his number 2 spot and looking at Scoot Henderson in at the number 3. And even with the number 3, Dame Lillard made the comments that he didn't, the route he wants to go as far as pushing his team into contention is not through the draft route. He would rather use that pick to trade and go get some talent to help him compete because, and Scoot Henderson, obviously with him and Dame in the same backcourt, I don't think it wouldn't it just wouldn't work, man. So I do see Portland shopping that number 3 pick and flipping it for a vet who can help Dame Lillard. And like I said, Charlotte, I see Brandon Miller. So again, looking at the draft position, some of these guys, it's just hard, y'all. It's just hard. Jarace Walker has been, looking through the different mock drafts. He's been anywhere from top 5. I say top 5, really 4 or 5, and up to 10 to even 15. So, but looking at again, I'm gonna reiterate the dog, the toughness. He's strong, he's powerful, he's got strength, man. He's going to command respect. On the defensive end and the offensive end. He's a force, man. But where would he fit? Well, he plays predominantly the 4, which Kyle Kuzma played the 3 this year and he was successful, but he has been more comfortable at the 4. Now, where would he work if we drafted him? Well, I mean, again, we just got a new president of basketball operations in Michael Winger, and we're waiting on GMs, new GM to come in. So we don't know the vision yet. But if you drafted, where would you put him? You would have to put him at the 4 and Kuz at the 3, and that leads to this this new comment, which is if you're going to draft Jarace Walker, it's going to be because you're adding to this current core of Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma, and Kristaps Porzingis. You could slide him at the 4. I think he'd be very successful playing between Kyle Kuzma at the 3 and Kristaps Porzingis at the 5. I think he can slide right in. He has defense, he has toughness, and he can shoot. Again, shooting 34.7% from behind the arc. So, but what is the downside? He could develop playmaking ability, put the ball on the floor, create for himself and create for others. But, that's something that has to be developed, but again, he has that talent and he has that body makeup that he could come in and start right away. The attributes of making him playmaking, adding playmaking ability, that's something you add to him down, 2-3 years down the road. His biggest MO is his toughness, his defense, his 3-point shooting. So I think he'll be a very intriguing prospect in DC. But, obviously point guard is the biggest point of emphasis for us. I think that if we're not able to trade back into the first round, definitely you take a point guard. The other forwards' names have been brought into the equation. Cam Whitmore has been a name that's been tossed out there. Taylor Hendricks, another name. But I think point guard, if you cannot get into the first round pick, I think the Wizards go point guard. But you got to ask yourself, the number 8 pick, if Anthony Black's already gone, Cam Whitmore's already gone, if you're not ready to make that step at 8 to go get Cason Wallace, you got to look at Jarace Walker, man, because he is a tough guy who can play defense and shoot the 3. And that's what we desperately need in DC, regardless if we decide to run back the current core, retool, or rebuild. So next, we're going to get to Dereck Lively II, a center out of Duke, who is eerily similar to Daniel Gafford. But before we do, and after that, we're actually going to talk about the GM search on who I think is ultimately going to be the GM. But before we move on, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. Woo! That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. I'm telling you, I'm a huge fan of FanDuel. I've used all the sites and I have my favorites here and there, but FanDuel is my number one. FanDuel is my go-to. I'm a parlay guy, so definitely check it out. I definitely recommend FanDuel. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's number one sports book, FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 or $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. And again, no sweat first bet up to $2,500. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. And thank you for making the Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on the show. We are going to talk about Grady Dick and Keontae George and whether they could be key additions to a retool or rebuild in DC. We're going to talk about, what I like about them because they add shooting, a lot of scoring between the two. So we're definitely going to get into a lot of draft scouting, going towards the draft. So getting back into it, we're going to get into Dereck Lively, the second out of Duke. He is a center. He is at 7'1" and weighs 230 pounds. Now, like I said, very similar to Daniel Gafford in his abilities and his limitations. Looking at his stat line, he averaged 5.2 points a game. He rebounded 5.4 rebounds a game, but he did average around 2.5 blocks. So that leads into what I love about Dereck Lively, man. He's a rim protector. He can lock down the paint. He is that guy who is going to shut down the paint on opposing teams. At 7'1", 230 pounds, he's going to bang up there with the big bigs who have size to him. He's going to be able to defend. But obviously, what is the negative? What is the downside to Dick Lively? His offensive repertoire is practically non-existent. Very few post moves, no kind of jump shot. Now there are videos of him working out where he's hitting shots at ease, and on one hand you're like, oh, okay, you can shoot the J a little bit, but then it kind of reminiscent of Ben Simmons and all his summer offseason videos where he's hitting 3-pointers at a record rate, and then he's terrified to make a dunk. So it really depends. The offseason workout videos can be tricky. They can be misleading. But do I think there's a potential that he can develop an offensive game? Yes, but that's the biggest key. The key word here is develop. He has to be developed. He definitely needs to be developed. He's not a guy that he's going to come in and start right away. And even if, how could he be an option here in DC? Well, many different ways. Again, I hate to, kick a dead horse here, man. But it depends on the vision. It depends on what the goal is going forward. If we're running it back or retooling around this veteran core, then he's a guy that, if we decide to trade Daniel Gafford, because Daniel Gafford's going into a contract extension, and obviously with the salary cap being the way it is, especially if we bring back Kyle Kuzma and or Kristaps Porzingis, then the salary cap position, the situation is going to be a little dire. So you may have to move on from Daniel Gafford. So could Dereck Lively come in and be that center off the bench? Absolutely, I think so. Obviously he has to be developed. His offensively, he's too limited. They're gonna have to work with him. But I think that he eventually be that guy to anchor the second unit. But would it come to the expense of Daniel Gafford? And I don't know if I'm willing to make that sacrifice, because Daniel Gafford, if you look at his game has evolved. At the end of this previous season, he was getting to the point where he was shooting jump shots. So, but Dereck Lively is an intriguing prospect. And then, again, he has been slotted to be drafted anywhere from 12 to 25. And because of his limitations on the offensive end, you could see him drop to the second round. You very well. So I think that if he drops to the second round, the Wizards have to take a look at him. Because you could develop him and still have Gaff on the team. And eventually, when he's ready to take that step to be that anchor on the second unit, you can trade Gaff, or if there's injuries, he can, I think there could be a place here in DC, but it's not going to be starting. And he's not going to, he's going to have to be developed. And really, if you look at the Capital City Go-Go and what they've been able to do for players like, Jordan Goodwin or Quentin Jackson or even Johnny Davis, what they got going on in the Capital City Go-Go, I think that they could work with him. They could really help him add offensive game to his game, add some tools to his offensive tool bag. But again, on the defensive end, I mean, he reminds me of Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is, as is very limited on the offensive end. I mean, he's pretty much non-existent on the offensive end unless it's lob threat or rebound and put him back up. So, he's intriguing though. He is intriguing. So, kind of circling back today, we did scout Jarace Walker out of Houston and Dereck Lively, the center out of Duke. And I think both of them could contribute here in DC, but they both have areas they need to work on. And obviously it comes down to this basic fact about the Wizards is that we have to have a vision. If we decide to run it back with Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma, and Kristaps Porzingis, whether we retool, which means keeping one of the two out of Kyle Kuzma and KP, maybe sign and trade Kuzma or KP and get in a veteran point guard. But there's options here in DC, but to really effectively look at fits and how a lot of these players could fit within this organization, it comes down to what is the situation going forward with the front office. So again, before we roll, we are going to get to who do I think is going to be the general manager of the Washington Wizards. So before we move on, we as you guys know, we just hired Michael Winger, formerly of the Los Angeles Clippers, to be the president of basketball operations, to oversee not only the Washington Wizards, but the Capital City Go-Go and the Washington Mystics, which I think if you look at him he runs the business side, and he's done wonders. Let me tell you, wonders in LA for the Clippers. But he also learned underneath Sam Presti in Oklahoma City, and he worked underneath Danny Ferry in Cleveland for the Cavaliers. So he has pedigree. He's worked underneath GMs who, look at Sam Presti is one of the better GMs in the NBA. He's a top 5, if not top 10 general manager with his ability to acquire picks, young talent, flip veterans, and if you look at Danny Ferry, his track record speaks for itself. So, Michael Winger definitely has the business side savvy and the pedigree as far as being a front office executive. And I think that this was a big move for the Washington Wizards. Ted Leonsis gets a lot of respect for me from this move because I've been hard on Ted Leonsis. Heck, I've been hard on most of the people on the team. But there's reasons for that. You demand excellence out of your team because as fans, as analysts like me and Ed R, we analyze his teams that, we want to see a team that is going to compete. So you got to be critical, and because I think that, critique is a key to bettering yourself. We all have to be open to being critiqued. And I think that when we critique this organization as fans or sports analysts, it's from the perspective that we want to see this team succeed. So that's where I'm at now. So now we're waiting on them to hire a general manager. So definitely comment below. Let me know who your candidate is, because there's been reports that Trajan Langdon is out of the running. They kind of, and it was actually, I'm not gonna say bad blood, but the way that he found out wasn't the most professional way to find out that you're kind of out of the running. But I think Trajan Langdon at this point is out of the running. So it comes down to 2 big names to me. Obviously, Milton Newton. He has history with the organization coming from the Milwaukee Bucks, and Will Dawkins, who, Michael Winger worked with in OKC. I think that it's going to come down to Milton Newton and Will Dawkins. And really, to be honest with you, I think it's neck to neck. I think both of them have, I guess, the familiarity with the organization to be in this role. But I think if I would say which one or guess which one had the leg up, it would be Will Dawkins at this point. To me, it was Milton Newton that had the leg up. But I would say this. I think Will Dawkins has the leg up to be the general manager because he worked with Michael Winger and OKC, and he worked underneath Sam Presti. I think that's just a match made in heaven to bring Will Dawkins into here, make him the general manager. And, again, to have 2 voices, 2 perspectives, 2 set of eyes in the front office is big. Tommy Shepard, he held the title of president of basketball operation and general manager. So you didn't have many people, if none, who are going to kind of challenge a move or say, hey, maybe we need to think about this. Or it's good to have more than one perspective, one or more voice in the front office. And I think that they're doing the right way. They're doing it the right way this offseason with the front office. Rehauling the front office, I think they're doing it the right way. They're bringing in competent leadership, and they're bringing oversight. So I think that Ted Leonsis, shout out to Ted Leonsis. I think I'm very impressed with him hiring Michael Winger. But if I were to bet on it, Will Dawkins is going to be the new general manager of the Washington Wizards. So definitely let me know what you guys think. Who's your guy, Milton Newton or Will Dawkins? Because I think it comes down to them. I don't see Bob Myers coming here. I think that ship has sailed with Michael Winger coming in as president of basketball operations, because if Bob Myers were to come into DC, it would be for president of basketball operations. And now that you have Michael Winger here, I don't know if Bob Myers would want to be a GM underneath Michael Winger. I don't know, and that would be a match made in heaven. But I'm not going to take a lot away from Milton Newton and Will Dawkins. I think they can come in and be very good general managers for the Washington Wizards. So we're going to go ahead and roll out today. We've been covering a lot of draft scouting. So we're going to do a lot more this week and next week leading up to the draft and getting closer to free agency. We are going to really talk, especially after getting a general manager, after we do an episode celebrating the new general manager. And after we kind of get a blueprint of what the path is, the vision for his organization, we're going to get into scenarios and draft scenarios for the Washington Wizards going forward this offseason. Me and my co-host, the big Ed Oliver, man. The real Ed Oliver, that is. So thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Everydayers. Tomorrow on the show, we are going to cover Grady Dick and Keontae George. And they are both intriguing scorers and shooters that I think can make an impact here in the 202. So I appreciate y'all, man. I definitely appreciate y'all, man. My dude, the real Ed Oliver, he's had a next couple episodes off, man. He needed a breather. So definitely shout out and show love to my dude. But appreciate y'all, man. Hail to the Wizards and peace.